Hello and welcome to GameGuru Classic and GameGuru Max broadcast number 134. So welcome to all those in the live chat. The format of this broadcast, pretty standard after 134 of them, is you have an opportunity to ask me some questions and I will post the answers in the second part of this broadcast. The first part is an opportunity for me to demonstrate what we've been working on in the last 7 days. And without further ado, we'll move on to that. But before, I just want to make sure that you stick a question mark, please, at the end of your question. It allows me to skim through the live chat much quicker and then get to those juicy questions and I can provide answers. I think last week we managed to get all the answers. Every single question received some kind of answer, which we don't often get to do, especially if there's lots of questions coming through. So have a think about a question you'd like to ask. If you're in the live chat, and pop a question mark at the end, I'm happy to get to it in the Q&A. But first of all, let's get cracking on with showing some demos. Now, we're pretty light on the ground this week in terms of GameGuru Classic news. If you ever remember, the last week's broadcast was pretty heavy on GameGuru Classic and showed a lot in that area. So this week, we're going to focus on Max. But I didn't want to leave into the Max section until I show you this, which you can see my screen and you can see my Steam page, because I was just browsing to see if there was any GameGuru Classic news I could partake, and I noticed that we have a whopping 75% discount for this particular bundle. Certainly newsworthy, especially if you're joining us for the first time and you don't own GameGuru Classic or GameGuru Max. So it's definitely worth checking that out. That's a pretty good deal in that you get the Game Maker and you get the Sci-Fi pack, which I think was one of the cooler packs for GameGuru Classic. Really excited to actually create little games. It was set basically, the inspiration was Mars, and so when you get the DLC and you play the sample level, you'll get a feeling, this might be Mars, because that was the inspiration. And it actually says Mission to Mars. That's kind of the clues in the title. So if you've not got a GameGuru Classic and you're interested, then go check that out. That's a pretty good deal. But without further ado, let's move on to the meat of the broadcast, which of course is GameGuru Max. And what have we got to talk about today? Well, we have a couple of things. Now, I did say, I think it was last broadcast, or the broadcast before that, we'll get to show more RPG related stuff. Well, we're hijacked a little bit by some more feature requests that kind of made a lot of sense for a couple of reasons. The two biggest ones is that we was always intending to do it for version 1. And so it was always going to be done whether before or after RPG. And another reason is that by adding these facilities, we're encouraging the artists in the community to be able to iterate faster, to produce more art, to test it quicker, to have a much easier time creating and testing art for GameGuru Max. And you'll find out soon enough what I am talking about if I run GameGuru Max and demonstrate it live. This is one of the benefits of the broadcasts, that not only can I demonstrate something like in the software right now, hot off the press, but if there is a question that requires a physical demonstration, we're in the software. We can jump into the software and rather than just talk about it, I can actually illustrate it. So this is the thing I've been using. This project is my little test project for these features. There are two features, in fact. The first one, I'll just load this simple empty level with one building. The first of the two features is instant media updating, and the second of the features is project folders. Again, the clue's kind of in the title, but I'll demonstrate. This building was created in the building editor. That's built into GameGuru Max, so go into the building editor in the edit menu. And I'm going to load up that building. That building was created in the building editor and then added to my library and then dropped into my level. So I can open up the project 777. That was the name I gave for this building. And there it is. That's the building that you see here with two windows and a door in the middle. The cool thing about this media, I'll tell you what actually it does. GameGuru Max, when you Alt-Tab into it, when you activate GameGuru Max, it instantly does a scan of any files that built your level. So anything that you dropped into your level, it adds it to this list, and it keeps checking that list every time you go into GameGuru Max. And if one of those files has changed with the new system, GameGuru Max will instantly hot swap for that latest version of the file, be it a model, a texture, a FPE file. And you can imagine the building editor has all three. It changes textures, it changes models, it changes FPEs. And so what we're going to do is move this door from there to there, and we're going to export it. Now I'm doing this manual step, so I've modified the file. I'm going to export it. So now that's just changed. That file is now changed. And if I were to drag that building into GameGuru Max, it would look like this. But what about levels that already have that building? Well, that's where the hot swap comes in. If I go straight back to GameGuru Max, think, gives you a little prompt to say it's detected 2 external changes, and it instantly does the job of getting rid of the old model building, dropping in the new building with the new changes. And it's as simple as that. And I'll just show you that again if I get this door and move it back into the center. Now this export manual step, I think it's a really good idea I think we are going to add it actually. I think it's a pretty cool idea. Another item underneath in the file menu, underneath export, there'll be a menu item with a tick box, which is auto export. And what I mean by that is if you're working on a building project and you make a change, as you alt tab out, the building editor will have the intelligence to save anything you're working on as the hot version of that. So you don't even need to go to export and save and click OK. All you got to do is make your change and then just go straight back to GameGuru Max, and then it makes that change. So you can just basically bounce between the level editor and the building editor. You don't have to keep saving and loading and re-importing. It's as if it's as if you're editing the building right inside the level editor, which I think is pretty cool. So let me show you another demonstration, because you probably think, well, that just should have been in there in the first place, Lee. That's not impressive. Well, let me show you a different set of, and this is probably more relevant to artists and what they've asked for and we have provided. Ignore Mr. Egg, he's a sign of things to come. Just keeps me company in the cold hours and the middle of the night. So this is 3 doors. It's the same door, I've just scaled them differently. And if I go into this folder, and before I go any further, just a little aside, remember the second of the 2 features we worked on this week? It's not finished, but it is working. It's just I've thought of a better way actually of doing this. You'll notice, look at the folder structure. Everyone's probably familiar, if you're doing manual stuff, with the GameGuru Apps GameGuru Max Files folder. And you may also be familiar with the project bank. And the project bank is all of the projects that you have in your hub. You remember my hub, there was VR support, there was, I think, Easter, and then there was new. And so inside here, normally you just have the project.dat file and any screenshot thumbnails. But now we've got this, a files folder. And inside the files folder is all the different media tanks. So audio, entities, objects, images, scripts, and videos. So you can actually have per game project media. So you can have stuff that's just for the game, and you don't want to contaminate your main installation of GameGuru Max, because the media is only for, or only intended for, that particular game. The reason I say I'm going to continue working on it is I'm not too happy with the arrangement. In fact, let me show you. If you go into Entity Bank, your project files, image, your project files, script, your project files. And that was basically set up so that when you're browsing the library, you always see your project files as a separate folder as to all the other things you can click for objects and sounds, etc., which I thought was pretty cool. But I'm forcing someone who's in Windows Explorer from manually creating this, which I think is a little bit redundant. And really the only purpose of this was to demonstrate it in the library, and there's other ways of doing that. So the final step for the project files, the project folders feature, is you won't need this. You won't need your project files. You'd simply have Entity Bank, which goes straight into all of your entities and folder structures, etc. And in the background, in the engine, we'll take care of your project files to show you the distinction between stuff in your main library, and stuff that's only available because you've opened that particular game project. But I digress. I wanted to demonstrate. This is a door, and we can change the texture of that door, and it will hot swap it into the level. So the quickest way I know of doing this is I'm going to copy one of the other textures. I will copy the file name of that, just rename it a little bit, then copy that in, and just as a making sure that it's definitely knowing that I've changed it, I'm going to change the format from DXT5 to say DXT1. Difference is DXT1 has 1 bit of alpha, DXT5 has 8 bits of alpha, and then I'll save that. As soon as it's done the conversion, it takes a while, so save. And now we go back to GameGuru Max. I think it's instantly hot swapped that texture for the latest one. The reason that's so cool is in the past, in order to test your new texture changes, you'd had to delete the object and then probably even reload GameGuru Max before you could actually see the different texture, because GameGuru Max tries to be clever, and if it sees that, oh, I've loaded that texture in before, it reuses it. But it didn't know that you'd changed that file since, and you want the new version of the file, the new version of the texture, instead of the old one. So now it actually detects that. It goes and looks at the file every time you come into Max and says, you have changed it. And it goes through the problems of deleting the old one, deleting the caches, loading in the new one, applying them to all the instances of the objects that uses that texture. But you don't have to worry about that. It just works. So it's great for artists, and who knows, maybe it's great for you as well. Now, this is off script a little, but I just want to double check that we have an extra ticky box. It's probably in here somewhere, but there will be an option. It must be here somewhere, Lee. It will be. Just there are a lot of options these days, but one of these options, you could probably find it before I do, is you can switch off that hot swap ability. Maybe you don't want, when you change files, you don't want them instantly popping up inside your level until you're good and ready. And so you can switch off this hot swap. It's a really cool idea. I might rename the whole feature to hot swap because it sounds pretty cool. But it's a live media updater. And I've already briefly introduced you to the project folders. But the idea is going to be, and I'll just give you a rehash of how it currently works. Default, it's not really import folder location, it's the default. Every file that you can write out to your computer goes into a writables area, and the writables area is here. GameGuru Apps, GameGuru Max, this is all your writables area. The final step for project folders isn't to place your project bank files inside here. It's to actually simplify the whole thing and have that whole GameGuru Max folder be your game project. So your game project's media will actually have its own location. That way you can actually have a single folder with only the media that pertains to that game project, very transportable. And in order to make sure that's flexible as possible, just as you can change the writables location here, you'll also be able to specify the project folder as well. So we're not forcing you to place it in My Docs. You can actually place your game project anywhere you want. And that should complete the whole full flexibility on where you want your files, how you want to organize your files, etc. And so that's the second of the two features I wanted to quickly demonstrate. Normal service will resume next week. I guarantee you that, because I'm itching to. We have done some work on RPG. It's just not in a position where it would super impress you. But after another 7 days, yeah, we'll be able to show you some really cool things in the land of RPG. A question was raised in the YouTube, why are we wasting our time on RPG? Please finish off first person perspective. It's because we promised RPG for version 1, and that's what we're aiming to do. We're getting to version 1 with VR and role-playing genre. Puzzles kind of taking care of itself, which was another of the genres we wanted to deliver for version 1. But in answer to the original comment, if there is anything that you consider to be incomplete for the first-person shooter genre, and the things we haven't completed and wasting our time on RPG, please elucidate on that and tell us what it is that you think we've missed. Because, yeah, there's no point us releasing RPG if we've half-baked the first-person shooter genre. So what are we missing there? What is something that maybe you don't know we're working on and you just want some clarity on that? Because we do want to ship a version 1 that lets you create shooters, RPGs, and puzzle games in non-VR and VR play experiences. So that is the plan for version 1. Okay, I'm going to see if I can dig out my live chat window. It's hiding here. And without further ado, let's go into the Q&A section. Okay, found ya. So I'm going to scroll to the top, looking for question marks all the time. And I'm going to see how many we can answer during this live chat. We're 17 minutes in, which is pretty great. So if we can get these answers done in 10 minutes or so, that keeps this broadcast nice and snappy under the 30-minute mark, and everyone can go on and do much more interesting things with their computer. So let's look for the first question, and the first question is from Loretta M. Is there a way to sample the sounds that are included in the GameGuru Max Audio Ambience pack? I'm not seeing a preview or list. Sample the sounds that are included. I'm not seeing a preview or list. Yeah, we actually were discussing it with discussing that earlier this week. It's great having a DLC with lots of sounds and music, but you can't really preview them. You kind of have to buy the DLC to find out what's in there. So we are doing a few things. Right off the bat, we're going to do a video. So the video trailer will demonstrate a level that was created just for the Audio Ambience pack, or Audio Ambience Booster Pack, given its official title, and it'll be a run through of that level, and in that level there's a lot of trigger sound effects, ambiences, different music loops, etc., and that should give you an idea of the quality but not the quantity. And yeah, if there isn't a complete comprehensive list of all the sounds in the product description, we'll take care of that as well. And if we haven't, please email. But you should see that change in the next 7 days, so maybe we can broach the subject again in the next broadcast to make sure that we've done that, because it's the latest DLC we've just put out. Third party did all the testing and even a lot of the collateral to actually get it out as a DLC, but we do want to improve some of the presentation aspects, such as the large illustration image that represents the pack. It's hard to do an image of sounds, but we'll give it a go. And of course the trailer video, which I think is missing at the moment. Okay, another question. This is from Old Gamer. Greetings, I am learning to code in Lua. Well done. Is it possible to create my own behaviours, and if so, where and how would I attach the script? It certainly is. In fact, the community have been making scripts for quite some time, and to make a behaviour out of them, it's super simple. In fact, we do have where would I be able to demonstrate? If I go into script bank users, there's nothing in there, is there, Lee? No, there isn't. Okay, so generally what you do is you go into your files script bank user, you create a Lua .lua file. Just there's lots of .lua files in the regular root core script bank folder, but then all you've got to do is add a .jpeg and a 2.jpg, and you'll find lots of examples in the behaviors folder, in the script bank folder basically, and all you're going to do is cut and paste those for inspiration on how to get to behaviors. If I just go into it's a bit ugly right now, let's go into this, back into here, because I think Mr. Easter Egg had a behaviour attached to him. No, he doesn't. Quick tip, if you want to get a behaviour attached to what was a static object, just switch it to physics off, and then you get access to the behaviour library, where you can actually have the object do anything you want. So objects is probably a good place to start, and maybe, in fact, you can do a search here for spin. There you go. Spin the object on an axis, like so. And all you'd need to do is provide the .lua, and there's some conventions that you've got to set the script up in a certain way. But as part of that setting up of the script, you can specify the description, you can specify all the fields that you want your end user to change. So you have let the end user control parameters and properties of that behavior, and you provide the image as well. And then once you place the lower and the image files in the script bank folder, you can discover it here in your users area, and they'll pop up here. So that's how you create your own behaviors. And if you think they're really cool behaviors and you'd like to share them with the community, send them to us. If you want us to put them in the official version of GameGuru Max, we'll be more than happy to do so. So, looking for the third question. And I'm sorry, these are very long answers, aren't they? Let's see if we can speed things up. Zero Kelvin asks, EBE, many unnecessary polygons, question mark. Not so. EBE largely is based on cubes and rectangles, the most primitive 3D object you can conceive of. And it's optimizers as well. There's a lot of divisions. There's an optimization routine which tries to find the fewest number of boxes in order to create the floors, walls and ceilings. So it is quite highly optimized. If you think we can optimize it even more, please share your ideas. But I don't see how we can reduce the number of polygons without having holes appear in your constructions. Okay, question mark from Tom. How is the inventory coming along? Any news? It has been in EXP, so we can... Any news in it? Any news in it being in EXP build so we can play with it? It is in the EXP build, but you kind of have to know where to look and what to create. It's certainly not user-friendly right now, although it is in the EXP build. And if you know what files to put where, it will start springing to life. I'll tell you what we'll do next Wednesday in the broadcast. And if someone reminds me in the chat, I'll actually show you how to start with a blank game project and get something up and running. Because, yeah, there's probably quite a few users who want to play with the early versions of the inventory instead of just relying on all the stuff that I've mocked up just for the broadcast and for my own tests. It will at least allow you to start playing with the inventory stuff and the other RPG stuff before we can say, ta-da, it's finished, and then put it out as an official, you can play with this now version. Marcos asks, how much will we have realistic water? How much will we have realistic water? There are no plans to further improve the water as it stands now. Not sure whether this level has any water in it. Yes, it does. So this is murky brown water. There's other levels. In fact, if you go to create your own terrain, you actually have lots of different biomes, and they also have sort of default settings for water. So you can have seas and oceans, you can have rivers that snake through your terrain, or large bodies of mountain water, clear blue, or you can go murky and choose your colours and your reflectance and your Fresnel terms, etc. But that's about as far as we're going. If you're not happy with the water, we could probably have that conversation after version 1, and maybe you could provide some examples of how a water should look. For me personally, I'm quite happy with the range of capabilities that the current water system has. But sure, you're quite welcome to share some videos of better looking water. But of course, you could just snapshot the last 10 best games of 2022 and say it has to be like that. But you must remember that was developed by armies of top-end programmers. GameGuru Max is a very, very small team indeed. So realistic expectation for realistic water might take some time. And yeah, it would mean freezing all the other features that we want to work on in order to add some new water system. So at least in the meantime, send a video of why our water's rubbish and there's a better water system we can use. Another question. Mr. Buzzardies. I'm new to GameGuru Max. Is there a demo for third-person project as well? No plans to add third-person for version 1. Although the community is already rolling their sleeves up to add third person anyway. The script system's pretty powerful, and you can do all kinds of cool things with cameras and objects and animations and logic within the game. It's just we're going to focus on first person for a number of different reasons. For example, our VR experience will all be first person. And you know, it was actually mentioned earlier in that comment I mentioned before about, you know, finish shooter before you move on to RPG. Well, that indicates that we ain't finished with first person. So we don't want to dilute the well here by suddenly stopping that and then working on third person. But we can have another conversation about third person after we release version 1. Question from All Gamer: how do I change the GUI for GameGuru Max? It's very tiny. The rest of my apps are just fine, so it's not a system issue. There is a button. Let me find it for you. There it is. Enable DPI awareness. You can just toggle that, and you'll get two different schema for the number of the size of icons and the size of text. It's pretty hidden, and it's pretty. I mean, there's a description on it, but not a lot of people find it. But yeah, it actually, one of them reads the OS, and the other one just makes a good guess based on the size of the screen that you've got. But I know what you mean. I actually had some modes on some computers, and the buttons were super, super tiny. Okay, questions are flooding in nicely. It's from Lucas, or Nose. Can we alter the character's stats, such as life point, speed, weapons, no weapon, via script, in a same level, using teleport to jump to a different character? Yeah, interesting. I think you could. I think there's enough control with the lower command scripts that we currently have that you could drastically alter what the player has and hasn't got. You can add weapons, you can subtract weapons, you can change health, you can change other stats. In fact, that's kind of part of just having the capability of being able to do that with one player. But I like your idea. It's like you can create an array of different players and jump between them just by changing all those stats. You'd have to do it in script. It's definitely a lower scripters thing. There's no plans to provide that out of the box. It's a very edge case. But yeah, I think there's enough commands for you to be able to do all of the above. And it'd be really cool to see that demo if you ever get round to creating it. And who knows, maybe it is going to be a future feature if you're kind enough to. Test it and finish it off and provide it into the official version. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe no one else needs that for their game right now. Another question from Lucas. Do we have any means to erase entities that fulfilled their purpose? And how do we free RAM? The game's engine takes care of the RAM. Don't worry about RAM. If it ain't freeing the RAM to a satisfactory level, it's a bug. And please report that in the issues board. As to entities fulfilling their purpose, yeah, you can have a script. And the command is called destroy. And it destroys the object from that level. Having filled its purpose, it disappears. And that's a destroy command. Here's a longish question from Titanium Rat. It doesn't seem like there's a way to use just a single texture without any normals or height roughness. Is that correct? I do retro style stuff and don't need all that. Yeah, and that's in reference to the PBR texture set, as we call it, which is a full gum up of albedo, normal, emissive, AO, transparency, potentially height maps in the future. Don't worry about it. Just provide the underscore color. And you don't need to provide anything else. And what GameGuru Max will do, it still uses the PBR set. It just uses like a blank normal and a zero emissive. And it just uses sort of defaults. So if you just want a flat looking albedo surface, just provide the underscore color.dds and the engine will take care of the rest. So yeah, you can absolutely provide one texture for your objects if you want to. Okay, question from Retro6502. Is that in reference to the chip? Okay, will there be a way to spawn entities like an enemy generator via scripts instead of placing each entity manually like a lower capability can dynamically create entities? Yeah, we had that back in the day, FPS Creator, but we did it cleverly. What we said is, this object is able to be spawned 50 times. And so the engine would pre-create 50 instances of that object, hide most of them, and then let you spawn up to 50. The reason we do that is it doesn't then eat all the resources from GameGuru Max. And we'll probably do the same again for GameGuru Max. And the reason I say that is RPG is going to need it. If you think about RPG game mechanics for things like spawning rats in a forest, and you've got to go in and kill a rat and skin it and eat it or whatever, you don't want to place rats down individually. You want to create like a spawn area and just say that in this area there will at any time be 50 rats based on day, night and whatever the parameters happen to be. And we're going to need spawning groups for that. So yeah, I think expect that as part of the RPG work. And yeah, it can be used for other things, but the idea of generating off the fly is something that you're going to want in most games, I think, especially RPG games. Okay, looking for a question mark. I'm scrolling down nearly to the bottom now. This is from Dude from 1972. How is the GUI editor coming along? Any new updates? Nothing to talk about today, but yes, there will be more widgets in this, what we call the screen editor. So you can drop in different gadgets that do different things with your game data. And once we've finished all the gadgets, you'll be able to create any kind of RPG screen and any other kind of screen that your game happens to need. RPG really pushes the boat out in all the different things you're going to need on a 2D screen. Once we've done that, other games that need a subset of those features, those widgets are available, and you can create the kind of screens you want for your game. But yeah, I'm hoping to reveal more widgets and new gadgets as part of next week's RPG broadcast. So hopefully something exciting for you to look forward to in 7 days' time. Scrolling to the bottom, it hasn't got a question mark on it, but I'm going to answer it anyway as the final question because we have bashed past the 30-minute mark, which I wanted to avoid. It's from Mr. Buzzards. Can you swap character faces with your own, like in GameGuru Classic? Not out of the box. The character creator is cool, but all of the media that you choose from was prepared by our artists in order to create a certain level of quality. And so if you wanted to change a face, you'd have to go into the character creator folder, find the heads, find the texture of those heads and change that texture. It's not impossible, but it's certainly not what I would call out of the box user friendly. There are no plans to do custom heads for version 1. As you can imagine, we've got other things that we need to get sorted out. But I do think after version 1, it would be a great idea to be able to let you customize the clothing, the face, all the parts of the characters and create your own body parts in an easy way. Before that, there will be a guide for artists who want to create their own body parts, maybe as a DLC or something to share in the community. That will be phase 1. And then of course phase 2 is a nice juicy button in the character creator where you can just easily import a texture and slap it onto a t-shirt or a head or an appendage, whatever it happens to, what your game happens to need. But not before version 1. That'll probably be talked about afterwards. So, as I said, that's the last question. I'm going to leave it at that, 33 minutes, and that's a pretty good broadcast. I'll be back again next Wednesday at 7 p.m. GMT, where I'll have, hopefully, some RPG progress to share, perhaps even moving on to one of the other sections. So, RPG and inventory, goodbye, and hello player skills, which there's a lot of commonality between those two. So maybe we get to show you more than inventory next Wednesday. So until then, thanks very much for your kind attention, and I shall say goodbye.